most of us are feeling spread really thin right now. Not a day goes by when I don't get an email or a call from a client or a prospective client saying, gosh, I feel like no matter what I do, I've hired people, I'm paying them, I've been clear, I'm setting expectations, I'm doing the stuff that you say to do, but I'm still the final sign off. I'm still in too many meetings. I'm still making the decisions I shouldn't have to be making. And what am I doing wrong? And we're feeling hopeless. We're thinking in extremes. Should I get rid of my whole team and just be me and a bunch of AI agents? Should I blow this whole thing up? We're getting extreme because we're feeling out of answers and out of options. And yeah, I think we all at some stretch of our imagination know that delegating is part of the answer here. But there's something that has to happen before we get to that. And that's where we're getting stuck. And that's what I want to talk about today, is the blocker that is keeping us as the point person for everything. And it's the thing that until we clear that, we can't even begin the conversation around delegating. That's what we're going to dive in today. Welcome to Managing Made Simple, a real talk podcast about the ins and outs of leading a team. I'm Leah Garvin, your host, and bring a decade of experience driving team operations in places like Google, Apple, and Microsoft on a mission to make leading your team easier. From delegating to feedback to one-on-ones and more, each week is a mini masterclass on making leading your team easier. Whether you're managing one person or 100, everyone is welcome to hang out on Managing Made Simple. When it comes to solving this issue before we can even delegate, it really comes down to three focuses, and that's what we're going to dive in today. Right? First and foremost is we've got to have the right people. And let's be honest, a lot of us on our teams, especially my business owner friends listening, we have people that we've had in our teams for a long time. It's a friend, a family member, a really loyal team member who was a fit at some point, and slowly it stopped being a fit and we haven't had a conversation. Now, we cannot delegate to them or we cannot improve their performance because they don't even know that something's wrong. Or maybe they kind of know, but they get defensive, or we don't want to hurt their feelings, or we don't want to approach that, so we haven't even talked about it. Now, of course, you're going to be feeling stuck in the weeds. Of course, you're going to have to be doing more than you need to be doing because you're not holding them to the same standard as you would someone that you hired tomorrow, let's say. And so this is going to be our first biggest blocker. And the solve to this, obviously, is having that conversation, is resetting expectations, is saying, hey, evaluating, is this person a fit for where we are right now? And that's actually what I do with a lot of my clients is we look at the team, we say, hey, are people in the right roles? Do we actually have folks that is it just feedback, or do they need some kind of professional development? Or do we need them actually shift into another role? So it doesn't mean I come in and we're like slashing all the roles. No, we're evaluating how do we get the most out of our people who want to be here and are doing, good work, but maybe there's some issues that are preventing them from doing their best. That's the first thing we got to do. We got to look at the team and say, whoa, who are we even working with here? Are there team members that we've given clear feedback to and they're not implementing it and they're not improving? And that's a tough conversation that might have to happen. Are there people that are struggling, but they have so much potential and we know there's a couple unlocks? That's a very different conversation. So the first thing is always looking at who are we working with? I talked about it last week. If we're talking about AI employees, agents, and automations, and they're just not quite landing, is it the onboarding? Did we not train it the right way? Are there expectations to be setting, more context to give it? Same conversation, right? Is there some piece, a missing unlock that needs to be here? That is the first place. And when we figure out that, we start to see, okay, it's not about just getting rid of everybody and starting over because, hey, again, if we had to use agents, and I've said this, we got to train them in the same way. And if you are evaluating bringing on agents to supplement your workforce or anything like that, please reach out, leahgarvin.com/contact. Let's have a conversation about how to do that effectively and thoughtfully so that you can make decisions that are based on a strategy instead of feeling like, oh no, I'm behind on AI. I got to just do this right away. Like spending a day doing a hackathon about AI is going to get you nowhere if you don't actually understand what tools to use and what you're trying to get on the other side of it. So that's what I do with folks when we're evaluating the team and where to plug AI into to give your team members superpowers is let's figure out what we're actually trying to achieve. What are the right tools for that? What skills to set up in Claude, what automations, what agents, and then we get the whole system running. So if that's appealing to you, if that's the problem you're stuck on, reach out, leahgarvin.com/contact. We will set up a call to talk about what that means. Second piece once we know, okay, do I have the right people, is where do I want to be focusing as a leader? This is another challenging one. How do we delegate when we don't even know what we're trying to hand off? Do we need to be having the conversations with the clients? Do we need to be the final ones selling and closing calls? Are we the primary service provider? Clients of mine that run production companies or for events or photography or things like that, sometimes they're the big creative thinker. They are the one thinking, they're essentially operating as the creative director and the business owner. And they enjoy that job of creative director. They don't want to step out of that. So when we figure out how to delegate and offload the right things, we don't do that at the expense of keeping them in that role that they want to be in, right? That's not the goal, is to take you out of the things that actually you're great at or help you thrive. Then it goes back to the first piece. We got to get the right people around you to free you up so that you have all your time on that creative piece. For clients that work in med spas or spas, salons, if they're the primary producer, same thing. We say, okay, well, first, are you the primary producer because none of your team members are actually stepping up to that level? That goes back to the team question. Or is it because, hey, you are developing new ways of treating folks or new methodologies or new way to service clients, or you love doing this? Then we say, okay, well, what are the places that you want to be focusing on as that producer? And then what can you hand off that's actually taking you away from that? And that's actually where some of these automations can come in, training up your team members and getting really clear about delegating. But we cannot do that, obviously, until we figure out what you actually want to be working on. What is your highest and best use, as they say? What gives you, what kind of gives you energy? What makes you feel really passionate about your work? Where are you feeling in the flow state? That's, we say we start a business for all sorts of reasons, but ideally, hopefully, we can be enjoying some of what we're doing every day. And we want to get you back to that. What are you really the best at? Are you get on the call with a prospective client and you can understand them so deeply that it's like a yes? Well, until we find someone that can do that, that's really a good use of your time to be that closer, so to speak, or that business development person. But because you have to do some of the work your other team members are doing, like on the service delivery, you're still in the weeds. You see what I'm saying? So we're trying to figure out where are you really best situated. Sometimes it's not the ultimate answer. I'm going to be really honest with you. Sometimes you don't have this huge built out team. You don't have the budget for it. If you're in a corporate team, you don't have the backfills, you don't have the headcount. So you're doing some of the things that maybe you don't want to be doing long term. But we want to identify, well, where are you best situated to still operate at that strategic level? But the third piece, my friends, and this is going to be the one that gets you out of the weeds again and again. It prevents you from being that ultimate decider, even when you've handed things off, even when you've talked until you're blue in the face about how you want people to be accountable, have a sense of ownership, is you got to have systems. You've got to have some sort of record for folks to come back to. How do you know that people finish their work? How do you know that people are focused on the right priorities? How do you know that, things are moving along as they should be? That's systems. And again, I talk about it a lot. It's not making things more complicated. It's actually making things simpler because they're more clear. Now take Snippets, for example. This was born out of business owners needing a bird's eye view. I want to know what my team members are working on at a high level. I don't want the tasks. I don't want to be digging in like, oh, wait, how does this connect to that? I want to know at a glance, people are focused on the right priorities, what their wins were, and places they're stuck so that if they need to talk to me, I can make time for that. So I built that exact tool. It started as a Google Doc. Hey, have a rolling document your team members fill out 5 minutes a week. Will give you this total clarity, total visibility. It works because it's simple. Now, super excited to share, I've recently rebuilt this as a web app, keeping it just as simple, but it gives you insights over time. So your team members log into the tool, and then you're seeing all of it in one place in one dashboard. Now, as you can imagine, over time, we can see patterns. Hey, what priorities are showing up week after week? Where are people actually spread too thin? Where are the same issues coming up? That's why the web tool is so powerful. But again, it's not because I packed in a bunch of features. It's because we said, what is the goal? Bird's eye view to see status and capacity. That is the reason it works. So when you think about systems, we always go back to what's the goal? right? Why do we have meeting agendas, right? So that we don't talk for 3 hours and realize like, oh, do we need to get together at all, right? A meeting agenda is a system. It's not complicated. It's not adding hours of time. It's saying, hey, before we go to a meeting, let's know what the heck we're going to talk about and like make sure that we do talk about that. This is how easy it can be. And I think I got so passionate about simplifying systems because I did spend so much time in the corporate world, working at places like Google, Apple, Microsoft, a process to the limits. Like you understand where it can go full extreme. In those roles, working in team operations in big tech, I actually started to simplify and remove steps and say, hey, wait a second. How can we get this answer faster? How can we make it easier for people to, understand what they're supposed to work on? That was my passion and my strength that I now bring back to small businesses is saying, hey, wait a second. Nobody wants to be corporate. Nobody wants all the bureaucracy. So how to make it easier to clear the runway for people to get their work done? And that's systems, because all we mean is predictability. When we make it predictable of like, I know where I save my files on the server when I'm done. I know what deck to use to send out a client pitch. I know the email signature to put in. I know, where I fill out my expense report, when I get my receipts. I know when I get a raise or bonus. So I'm not asking you every day whenever we have a one-on-one, like, can I get paid more? These simple systems are what frees up, I would say 95% of your brain space. I'm not even kidding. Because the things that you feel like, why am I in this conversation? And I'll give you a quick list. We already talked about why am I approving everything? Why am I making every decision? Like that's kind of like the same one. But a really big one is why are my team members asking me every week about when they can get a raise or promotion? Why do I have that conversation to the extent that I want to avoid them completely? And now I'm back to thinking I don't need a team at all because an AI robot's not going to ask me unless I use all my tokens and it wants more subscription money. The reason you get asked that is because they don't have a system. They don't know when they're ever going to get paid more or how to ask you about it. That's why it's coming to you. Same thing with why do I keep having to have this conversation again over and over is because you don't have a feedback loop. There's not a process for like giving feedback. Like, oh, we check in on, every Monday we have a one-on-one. That's a system. Literally. That's how simple it is. And it can feel like, well, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do here. That's why I built this stuff because I get it. I've been in big companies where even in some of these I mentioned, Google, Apple, Microsoft, even Bank of America, where people were applying these kind of big systems very differently and inconsistently, and it gets just as confusing. So it's not a property of, working in a small business or a large business or whatever. It's what I do for folks is make it simple so that we can apply these things regularly and it's not confusing, it's not overwhelming, and it's not heavy-handed. And so when you do these three things, when you first evaluate like, hey, okay, do I have the right people? And maybe it's flipped. I say maybe you start with the second piece, which is thinking first, what do I need to be working on? Where am I best positioned to grow this team, grow this business? Then do I have the right people around me? And what conversations do I have to have with folks to really make sure that I'm getting that? And then what is the supporting systems infrastructure I have to put into place? Now, I can't help it. You can take the girl out of corporate, but you can't take the corporate out of corporate. I'm saying things like infrastructure and systems, and these words might feel like heavy-handed. I'm talking about clarity. That's all it is. A meeting agenda, a one-on-one template, snippets so that you have a bird's eye view. This is what we mean. Clarity. Does my team have clarity to know what done looks like, that they're going to get the same version of me on Thursday as they got on Monday? That's what we mean. And when they have that clarity, that's where you can start to delegate. You can start to make things for them super clear. Here's where I'm involved. Here's where I'm not. Here's how I sign off. This is how we know it's done. When it's not done, you're going to get the feedback. It starts to feel less personal, starts to feel less emotional, less subjective. You just have this flow. So this is what's going to get us out of this feeling of, I just can't, and I think it's time to just stop and start over and get rid of everyone. No. And the way you get support, if you need a little bit of help, a lot of us do because it's really hard to see the forest through the trees, reach out, leagarvin.com/contact, share where you're at with your team. We'll have a conversation. can talk about a couple quick wins you can implement right away, because usually there's a few tweaks that you don't even need my hands-on support, and that's going to open the floodgates. So that's what I love actually doing on these calls, is like saying, oh, okay, this is dialed in. But then if you're like, hey, I want the system, I want to figure this out, that's where we talk about how do we really get you up and running to scale and free up all of this time, all this brain space. Because the reason you have a team, whether again it's people or agents or whatever, is to free up your time. So if you're still making all the calls and you're still doing all this stuff that somebody else or something else could be doing, then that is never going to get you that freedom that you started this business to have, or that you became a leader to have. All right, leahgarvin.com/contact. We will get you the answers you need. And in the meantime, try this out. Answer these 3 questions. What should I be doing? Who's the right people? And have I had the conversations? And then what systems do I have? Those are things that I can leave you with feeling empowered to try. And I assure you, this is going to be game changing. All right. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope this podcast makes leading your team feel just a little bit easier. If you liked this episode, check out my most popular tool for staying in the know of what your team's working on without having to micromanage at leahgarvin.com/snippets. And if you're looking for more support for yourself as a leader or for the team you're managing, don't hesitate to reach out at leahgarvin.com. See you next time.